Hi everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me I've got Dave Berkus, and we're going to be talking about his new book, The Leader's Toolkit, a collection of tools, strategies and tactics that they never teach you in business schools. Practical shortcuts and strategies, leadership and entrepreneurial effectiveness.
Glad you memorized that, Tim.
All memorized, yeah. Dave, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book.
Sure.
Where can people find you?
I can be found at berkus.com, berkus.com. And I'll do a little pitch. I have a free weekly email that drops every Tuesday morning. It tells a story of a CEO who has succeeded wildly and the moral, or failed miserably and the moral. And I have about 120,000 subscribers, and I'd love to have 120,001. How's that for a start?
Wow, that's amazing, having 121,000. Anyway, Dave, what was the inspiration for this book?
I've written a lot of books, and I do no research, which may bother you. But in every case, these are stories from companies that I have invested in or CEOs I've coached. And so they're always very personal to me.
I really, when I've read the book, and there are stories in there. One of the things that you say at the beginning is that you this isn't just like a normal leadership book, and I've read a lot of those, and they usually tell the same things. But what you've done in this book is that they are all experiences, and some of the things are you wouldn't experience in them. Well, you don't experience them until you experience them, if you know what I mean.
Like begging a CEO not to eliminate his insurance.
Could be.
Yeah, during a board meeting, and showing him a picture of one of his contemporaries whose building burned down. Just one of those little things. And then the moral that comes out of that story.
So, Dave, the subtitle of your book mentions things what they never teach you in business school. In your experience, what's the single most dangerous myth taught in traditional MBA programs that fails leaders in the real world?
The leaders need to lead. And in fact, one of the reasons that I wrote this book was to show that some of my favorite leaders that have done the most to increase the value of their companies have either led from behind or led alongside, rather than having to show off and become the leader of the leaders.
I think that's one of the things that definitely people are becoming more attuned to in the modern times.
I think of Tim Cook, by the way, only because we now know that he's stepping down, and that he has increased the value of Apple shareholders by $4 trillion during his tenure. But you don't think of him being like Steve Jobs, somebody who would walk in the room and say, "This is awful, change this now." He was much more of a leader that people wanted to follow.
The same with the CEO of Microsoft.
Oh, absolutely. I remember Ballmer when he took over, and he was loud and pushy, but he got the job done, and people knew where he was.
So you talk about the concept of teacher customers. How can a leader distinguish between a customer who's just complaining and a teacher customer who is actually providing the blueprint for the company's future?
That's a great question, because the term teacher customer came to me at a time when, very early in my investing life, I discovered a customer that was teaching the company, a software firm in that case, exactly what was needed. And so it wasn't one where we had the engineers saying, "This is what we've got." It was the customer saying, "This is what I need. What can you do for me?" And how your software is just beginning to help. I had two cases of that in my own company, going back to the time when I was CEO of a software company. We were in the hotel industry. We were one of the first 3 reservations and front office companies in the hotel biz. And Marriott decided at some point, about 4 or 5 years in, to look closely at our software for Marriott hotels. So they sent 2 people out for a week to look at my software. And during that week, they came up with 125 things they wanted changed. And I asked those two if they would stay over the weekend at my expense and enjoy Los Angeles. They decided to do just that. And I programmed all weekend. And by Monday morning, they came back and we checked off 110 items and Marriott licensed the software. The interesting story about that is that was 1982.
Wow.
And I've long since, I left the industry in 1990. I have long since kind of remembered Marriott. When I stay at those hotels, I say, you know, I know who wrote that software. I have your passwords, which I used to for training.
Yeah.
But until this year, 2026, there were, and there still are, 4,200 Marriott still using that code that I wrote in the 70s and 80s. You never know.
Amazing. Many founders view their board of directors as a necessary evil or a group to be managed. From your seat on over 40 boards, what is the one tool in your toolkit that turns a board from a hurdle into a competitive advantage?
I love to think of myself as the quote expert on boards. I've been on so many of them. And it is, for me, the opportunity for a CEO to have a coaching group. And if the board is properly constituted, one that doesn't push the CEO, but rather deals with the CEO rather than to the CEO. So a board should be, for an early stage company, 5. And you don't need a board typically until your first investment. But when you do take a board, you do realize that there are some things that you give up. A board can fire the CEO, even the founder. Founder retains the stock, of course, but the board can fire the CEO. But the board can also support the CEO in ways in which the CEO couldn't do it, him or herself, such as raising funds, making relationships that the CEO did not have before, teaching the CEO how to get from here to there, process. And then finally, helping the CEO with the core time competency of the corporation. Nobody ever thinks of that. They always think of time management as being the schedule for the person. Yeah. And it really is scheduling the time of the core competency, which might be the software development team. It might be the marketing organization, whoever it is. And if you can work on that to remove bottlenecks, increase the efficiency, and make the firm more profitable as a result, that board becomes very valuable, no matter how you pay it.
That's really good advice. Thank you, Dave. That's very good. You talk in the book, and I know that you've also written another book about the Berkus method. It's and you use it for valuing early stage startups by looking at risk rather than just financial projections. How has the toolkit changed in the current economy where growth at all costs has shifted back to path to profitability?
You're asking some good questions, Tim. Thank you.
That's all right. And I'm trying to make my audience like to be educated.
Okay, well, the Berkus method was created back in the early 90s. And it was when I never believed the financial projections of the entrepreneurs that were trying to apply for money. And I had to have a better way in which I could de-risk rather than just believe.
Yep.
And if I believed, I would then take a forecast and cut it in half or do something like that.
Yep.
These forecasts, 50% of the time, never got off the ground. If you talk about product market fit, many of those companies never found it. And so you can get excited about an idea and still lose. So I developed the Berkus method to find 5 methods of de-risking. And it's funny that a moment ago, I just mentioned 4 of the 5. And the 5th one is money, of course, the amount of money that the investor gives. So if you take the 5 things, excuse me, relationship, money, time, help me, numbers 4 and 5.
It will come to you, Dave. Don't worry. It will come.
And I gave them to you a second ago.
You did.
And you use those and give them a score. And the score is done in amounts of money. And you can pre-value a company based upon reduction of risk. And if you do that, it is much more logical to make an investment at some maximum value based upon that than it ever would be by just picking a valuation typically offered to you by the entrepreneur with his or her excitement and investing with a small negotiation at that amount. And it works, and it has worked to help over 1 million entrepreneurs and investors over the years to find common ground in investing in a company where everybody believes the value is reasonable.
Yeah. Because Dave, if you don't mind me saying, you look young enough to remember the dot-com boom.
I'm 85.
And I remember, and I don't know if you, but I remember all kinds of people coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, this is worth millions." It's like, really? We're going to sell vitamins online, and everyone's going to buy vitamins online. It's like, really? It was like...
I was investing far too much money in 1998 and 99. Let me go back to the beginning. I started investing in 1981 and professionally in 1993. And so I was throwing a lot of money at businesses that were shiny toys in 1998 and 99. And I was lucky that a couple of those hit big because most of those failed completely.
Okay, good.
And so best lesson for me is that you have to be aware of trends. First of all, the trend that broke in the dot-com bubble, which you mentioned in 1990, or the 2008 bubble, which was basically financial company based. And there were many before that people don't remember. There was a real estate bubble that happened in 1990. There were some others that happened as well. And those bubbles I lived through and had to be very careful that I didn't just eliminate the companies that I thought wouldn't make it, but rather coach those that I thought could make it through, mainly to reduce their operating overhead so they could.
Yeah.
That was my main job during those years.
You've seen hundreds of visionaries. At what point does a leader's vision stop being an asset and start being an hallucination that derails the team? How do you use your tools to stay grounded?
The first thing is the visionary leader is one who understands that people need to be motivated for reasons other than fear. And you often hear stories of people that said, my boss was scary, or I didn't really like that company. And the flip side of that coin is a leader that says, here is what to do. Here is why you should do it, but not necessarily how to do it. People feel a little denigrated when they're told how to do something, especially if you hired them to do that very job.
Yeah.
So those are the first two things that I worry over a leader overstepping by trying to be a micromanager and teaching people how. If the leader gets beyond that, now we can begin to polish the leader's skills in other ways. And those include allowing the leader the chance to cheerlead, but not too much. If the leader says, I'm going to have an employee of the month, and it's a rather small company, and the same person gets it every 7 or 8 months, the employees understand right away that this is a false flag. But if the leader says, tell me which employee did something this month that was spectacular, and let's celebrate that person. Or if by walking around, I, as a leader when I was doing this, was able to talk to people below the managers that reported to me, never, ever, ever instructing them, because that's the worst thing you can do, but asking them how they felt, what they thought they could do better, what they thought we could do better. Now you're getting information to talk to the person that you are actually instructing, your direct reports. So good leaders listen. In fact, you asked about boards a minute ago. It's true of leaders too. There is an expression I learned back in the 90s at a retreat for a nonprofit where a very large company's leader was giving us a lecture. And I have not forgotten it, and I've restated it, taught it again hundreds of times since that time. And it is noses in, fingers out. And what it means is, for those of us that are board members, never ever reach beyond the CEO to instruct somebody to do something, but you can listen. Same thing if you're the leader and you're talking about those who report to you, the example I gave you a minute ago. Really great things to remember. Noses in, fingers out.
I like that. Noses in, fingers out. Yes, very good. In the Leader's Toolkit in your book, you emphasize speed. When a leader is faced with analysis paralysis, what is your go-to tactic for forcing a decision without having 100% of the data?
Let me start with one of those 5 things, 2 of which I forgot earlier. And one of them is time. And when I spoke about time being the core competency, let's say that your fixed overhead is, pick a number, $100,000 a month. And you're wasting $120,000 a month while you're producing a product slowly. And so it takes 18 months to get that product out the door when your competitor got it out the door in 6. You have just wasted a year. And if your gross margins were 50%, you just wasted 2 years worth of gross margins. And so teaching somebody how to get something done faster, that's the process one that I forgot a few moments ago. It is a chance to teach the company the value of being able to make things happen fast and well. And when I say well, let me add one more thing. Quality is more important than quantity. And I learned my own lesson when I was growing that computer company at the rate of over 100% per year.
Yeah.
And at a point, we got ahead of our skis, and our support organization was having trouble responding to the number of tickets that were coming in. And we got a reputation. And our competitors' salespeople knew about that reputation, of course, spread it around the world. And it took us 6 months to repair it by hiring and training, and 2 years to get around that bad reputation that we had. What a lesson to me that quality is better than quantity.
There's a number of lessons that you give in the book around monetary and, as you were talking about earlier on about if you're doing certain things and you're spending this money and there's the only way that you would know those things because you live them and breathe them. So
you bet.
Great leaders often struggle to delegate. What is the specific strategy from your book to identify and empowering a number 2 who can actually execute the vision?
Okay, so you get to do a little editing, which I do as well when I'm in my podcast mode. Okay.
So let's do that again. Great leaders often struggle to delegate. What is the specific strategy from your book for identifying and empowering a number 2 who can actually execute the vision?
The biggest lesson of all is to let go. When you tell somebody what and why and not how, that can be your number 2. And the best way to train a number 2 is allow that person to see what it is that you think are the core reasons why you created the business, why you're growing the business, and how you manage the business. And if that number 2 is empowered to do things in his or her own way, but still get the same things done because they're doing the what and they're doing the why, you're training people to replace you. I used to love going on my twice around the world trips because when I would leave, I would tell people, I had 5 people directly reporting to me, I don't want to hear from you.
Yes.
I don't want any phone calls. I don't want anythings.
Yeah.
By that time, then, by the way, there were no emails. So this means phone calls were the only ways of finding me.
Yep.
But I had 29 offices around the world, so they knew how to get me. And I said, don't do anything. And I would come back 2 weeks later, typically, and they would be proud to tell me what they had done.
Yep.
It was never a question of fear or worry or wait.
And I think that's a great way as a leader, which is I had someone on my podcast last week and I asked this the very question. I said, what's the best thing you can do? And they say, well, go on holiday and see what happens.
Exactly.
Because you should be in a situation where the people are empowered to basically carry on and do the work without you.
You got it. And it is, for me, If you empower leaders, let me give you a kind of another personal example. That same company, I had a great staff. In fact, as I left the company and went into early stage investing, I would go back to the trade show for that particular industry for 20 years after that. And echoing every time through the aisles of the trade show exhibit booth were my former employees who said, "This is the best company I've ever worked at." And is the kind of thing that makes a boss happy, because that's what you leave behind.
Mm.
It's not the money, although that was great.
Mm.
It was more of a question of knowing that you brought people ahead in their own industry, in their own way, to be leaders. And so I became a member of the Hall of Fame for that industry. And 3 of my former employees, as they moved on, also did. That has never happened since, never happened before either. So I'm very proud of the fact that I did create leaders, lots of them, and left them behind.
Yeah. Dave, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book, The Leader's Toolkit, a collection of tools, strategies, and tactics that they never teach you in business schools, practical shortcuts and strategies, leadership and entrepreneurial effectiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, if we wanted to buy a copy of the book, where can we get one from?
Anywhere in the world on Amazon, including Amazon Japan, Amazon Europe. And of course, there are others too, like Barnes & Noble. So virtually any of the booksellers will have copies of the book, excuse me, in the soft cover editions. The hardcover editions have to be bought directly from me.
Okay.
So, because it's hard to get hardcover editions around as easily. And of course, it's also available in audiobook and in soft reader books as well.
Excellent. And Dave, where can we find details about you?
You'll find me on LinkedIn at Dave Berkus, Berkus. You'll find me on X. I publish twice a week on LinkedIn, once a week on X. And of course, you'll find me at Berkus.com. And there's a lot of video content there on that site.
And don't forget, Dave's got a email list, which is how big is it?
Yes.
It's what,
120,000. And Tim, if you sign up, as I said, you'll be 120,001.
On one, yeah.
And that would be fun.
Dave, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book. I really loved it. I really recommend it to people. They will learn stuff about business that you will not have learned at a business school. So thank you so much.